What can possibly be sensed between two people physically close to each other during an art-making process? How can each of them be influenced in a brightly lit space? Now, what about moving in that space with dimmed lights this time, but filled by the colored mist instead, and being concurrently guided by movable structures, or at times being obstructed by them, perhaps? What symbolic role do these installations play when a musical piece is being born in that same space? Do they bear enough meaning to be now regarded as characters? How does this symbolism influence the drama of the movement through the space? Does this space even matter after all? Or the sound, the structures, the colors, the contrasts, and the movement already decided all by themselves and expand from the space? The composer Alexander Scriabin incorporated into his works an expanding set of genres that involved light, color, movement, scent, space, and touch, in addition to the sound. By means of combining multiple artistic elements, he intended to become what we would now call a multidisciplinary producer, creating productions consisting of various art genres in addition to being a composer. He wrote, "Everything must merge, everything must unite for the expression of creative activity. Music was insufficient for this purpose. There must be shades of color, gestures, every kind of rhythmical movement, human speech in all its forms, and therefore, indirectly, science, technology, and everything in general which relates to human creative life and thought." Alexander Scriabin is known for his synesthetic perceptions. There is, however, a hypothesis that he was not born with this neurological phenomena, but developed his color-tone system cognitively. Inspired by his artistic views, aspirations, and creative goals, the Intertwining Arts team has created a project in 2 parts on his 10 piano sonatas. This film is representing the journey of the second part of this work, the Late Sonatas, numbers 6 through 10. The project is semi-composed due to the existing musical score and semi-improvisational with the aim to artistically explore the main concept or a message for each late piano sonata, which are subsequently united into a profound journey through the interpersonal interpretational exchange between the collaborators. We have blended piano music, dance improvisation, light performance, and spatial installations with a goal to explore the non-verbal artistic communication that occurs between multiple performers during art making. How can the decisions of an artist from one discipline influence the choices made by an artist from another discipline? My name is Elina Axelrod, and I'm the pianist performing the sonatas in this project. Scriabin left us with just a few lines of what can be perceived as synesthetic content that he envisioned in the late 5 sonatas. In addition to his color-tone system, we do have the tonal centers, which are called the derived and departure dominants for sonatas numbers 6 and 7, and 1 center for each of the remaining 3 last sonatas, that it is said he approved. He mentioned certain moods and messages of each sonata, some of which were expanded or explained by scholars. This was used as a base to build our project upon. What was unexpected, however, is that I was so strongly influenced by the combination of the music and the above-mentioned information that at first I came up with a set of keywords, one per sonata, that then doubled over the years. This is why, in the beginning of each sonata, in the artistic film, you will see two main words that transmit the theme of the piece. It is, of course, very personal, and I do not claim that it works for everyone. It does, however, work for me and my team in this project. Moreover, there is one more additional keyword at the end, which is not written anywhere in the film. The word is eternity. I feel that after the last sonata, the number 10, there is only the timeless, eternal universe that we're all part of. After all, Scriabin wrote that through his music combined with other artistic genres, he wanted to transcend the realm of human emotion and reach pure ecstasy. Perhaps his 10 sonatas help us get closer to this state.
I was really happy to know the themes and the meaning, what each sonata kind of is about and what you see in it. And it kind of really helped me shape some kind of movement for each sonata and also like distribute my time and my qualities. So I wasn't really over repeating myself. But then I found myself sometimes maybe stuck in my own thoughts thinking, oh, is this movement gonna be fitting this theme? Does it fit in? And it would limit the stuff that I would maybe do like on spot improvising because I was doubting if it fits in the theme. And that was just now, like I was thinking about it just earlier, I don't know, in one of the sonatas, and I was like, whoa, I was actually really doing something and repeating it so much because I was thinking about it a little bit too much, about the theme. And so for me, maybe it's just kind of knowing the theme and knowing what it is about, but also letting it go sometimes and kind of finding my own understanding of it too. And I think that's something that I've learned this few days for sure.
I think it's a very important point that you mentioned now. When you have an orientation, but then artistically, it's very important to learn how to let go, and maybe the new understanding would come, or see if it comes or not. But if you don't let go, there is no way for anything new to come in, because you will be obstructing that new knowledge or new sensations
and especially
in the brain.
When it comes to filming as well, it's like you almost have to plan some things a little bit. At some point, it felt like I was improvising, but there were certain moments that I already knew that were going to happen. And it's also the positioning and everything. And it made me question how much am I now still improvising and how much am I being spontaneous.
I like seeing how the light is dimmed in the middle when everything really dies. I'm thinking that, the main color is the deep dark red, and I love it. But on the other hand, I'm thinking if it's only that and nothing else, whether that's the best idea, or shall we try to have other things at some point? Or maybe going in this room it's probably hard, fully neutral, bright white, or even like colder white towards the end, kind of representing the, atmosphere, neutrality, in a way that it's the space and it exists, the space meaning the universe, and it breathes. So that's what I feel when it's, this dun da da, and then dun da da. That's like one set. you know, this big something. And that's why I think this sonata is like connecting us with the universe in some way that is always there, of course, but this is a perspective that gives, like, we can actually see it clearly somehow, how this big something is always there and it has its own rhythm. That's why I was thinking maybe to add white at, like, towards the end, maybe even something like icy blue, just thinking of the outer space. My feeling is that it doesn't die anymore, but because it has died once and then it was brought back to life. It got resurrected, reborn, rejuvenated, and then it grew. And then for the second climax, instead of having that climax, it just dissolves into small particles that are flickering, that are flying, and then it goes upwards, and it's weightlessness. I loved how you finished like this. Also, it gave me a lot, because you can kind of, you know, go inside, but you were there with this big something. I don't know how to call it. We should give it a name, maybe. And then maybe we don't need the color anymore, any color. Maybe it has to be just simple.
Sonata number 7. This is the only sonata in which Scriabin used primary colors for the C and the F sharp as the tonal centers, corresponding to red and blue. This is a very strong statement, and perhaps the strongest sonata. It is viewed by us as a counterforce. These colors empower the piece and help us create the force necessary to drive the energy onwards. In the sonata number 8, the key color is green. I perceive it as a cold green rather, almost close to turquoise, and this is what we have decided on. During one of the runs, I noticed that Nick and Valerio, our light artists, were adding some warm flickers of orange, perhaps as a counterweight to green in a sense. I immediately fell in love with this combination while playing, as it enabled me to somehow discover warmer qualities of the sonata itself.
What does light, Elena, change in your performance?
Oi, this is what I'm here for. That's the short answer.
What is the impact of the light?
It puts me into a different mode. Really helps me find, of course, together with Leia, find the character. And since I know Scriabin's ideas for each main key, let's say, or for the two first sonatas for 6 and 7, there are 2 main keys, they're a triton apart. They're actually not main keys, they're officially called the departure dominant and derived dominant. So that's the dichotomy, that's why we have the red and blue in the 7th, for example. Or when the other day you guys switched yesterday green for number 8, I was immediately feeling, this is just right. Let's do this. It just brings me into a different mindset when it helps me play, when it feels just right. It's very hard to explain it somehow more scientifically or artistically, but you know, when things click and you feel that this is that color or that atmosphere that you want.
Yes. Maybe it's like the difference between rehearsing in the rehearsal room, or like in a studio, or coming in the theater or this space, which is another kind of different space. I don't know, lights change something for sure.
They create magic in their way.
Yeah.
They create something that's not there without them.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's something that we kind of now believe it's a performance more. You know, like
There's this special ambience.
yeah. I wouldn't say it's like I would perform more. It's because you perform in the rehearsal studio as well, but it just changes the feeling of it a little bit. I don't know what kind of feeling exactly, but it's like this, I don't know.
Exactly, right?
It's
I
hard
thought
to-
I'm the
yeah.
only one. I can't find particular words, but it's
Because it's not like, oh, now it's performance time. It's not this, it's just a different feeling.
maybe it's even dreamy like. It's something kind of not quite. It's a different here and now from the usual here and now in the normally lit aula room with normal concert light setup. Normal for this room, what we usually have here. Very bright, very, nothing special.
Maybe it's a bit more personal. Because it's like, especially if the lights go a bit darker, or maybe the change of color, it's not something that you see in everyday life. So it kind of makes it a bit more personal, maybe for me. I'm not going to say for you, because I don't know if that's you.
It makes me even further than that. I've been thinking, what would Scriabin have said if he had seen this? Because this is maybe something that he wanted, but we don't know because it was more than 100 years ago. But would this be the direction? Maybe we're doing it totally wrong. I have no idea. But I've been thinking about that too. Was that something he envisioned for these pieces? But that's a rhetorical question.
100 years ago, he wouldn't have a dancer that moves that way, for sure. Not that this is good how I move, but it's definitely different to how a body would move 100 years ago, for sure.
Of course.
So that's already a difference.
That's huge. Yeah. No, he would be shocked probably, and in a good way. When he would have, if he would have seen you. And of course, they had these light bulbs, the first light, tiny, and it was very cute. But you know, nothing compared to this, and of course, nothing compared to what we have in Mumut. So, yeah.
I mean, for sure, it gives you, of course, a mood. I would say it's like a mood, and
Exactly.
when you say you put also more dark, it's getting more intimate somehow.
When you think about the changing of the light and the frequency of the changing of the colors,
In the same piece, you mean?
yes, yes, during the piece, does it relate to your form interpretation? Do you interpret the form pianistically differently because the light is changing in this frequency?
Oh, this is a very difficult
Do
question.
you react to the
This is probably enough for a dissertation chapter. The form.
Well, if I just say something
Please.
from like seeing you being so particular with how the lights dim and how certain things happen, it probably does really create some kind of form in your head. Maybe that you don't realize, but
I don't.
you know.
Because it goes so together for me that I don't separate the light or no light because I have it in my head anyway. I have that big dim in the 10th sonata into the darkness and then the rebirth. So the other time when Nick did
The quick.
he kept it dark for longer than needed, and I was playing and playing, and I was hoping that he would bring it up, and I think he thought it was gonna happen later. So anyway, and then I felt like, okay, now I have to stop because this is a big huge section with a lot of sound, and it was still quite dark. I wanted to even show him something, but then we did it again. Yeah, it's really interconnected because it is connected with characters. It is connected with what's going on. And actually for number 7, there are these 2 primary colors, not like for any other one. Because, all the other colors are some mixtures. Like violet or green or the orangey. The dark red is also not the brightest red technically. But red and blue, that's a huge statement. and that they are together in the seventh sonata, that also kind of pushes me more to give it more, I would say. Because it's not something you put together unless you really want to create that statement. And I guess he did. Was that something that...
Red and blue, isn't that
Red
like
and-
emergency? That's like police.
Well,
Red and blue is police, no?
well, we do have some kind of a... Is it a siren or something in the first theme? Well, we have the bells at the end, but still. Yeah, that's police.
Internal emergency.
The color shades were mostly pre-programmed in advance. Valerio Zanini and Nick Acorn could control the intensity, contrast, and the range of how much the room would be lit or dimmed during the minimum and maximum points of the light span. Leia, in turn, had a sensor on one of her hands, with which she could partially control the interplay of the color and the direction. We had 4 posts with various types of projectors mounted on them. Leia could use either a rotating wrist movement, pointing movements, or up and down movements to determine which projectors would be lit at a given moment. The intensity was, however, determined by my dynamics of the piano. The lights were programmed to react and light up stronger for things such as bigger, louder chords, and flicker or be softly lit for soft motives and melodies, respectively.
Now what we did here is more like a classical, like a concert light setup, which is more like works in a supporting way, like supporting you as performer and Lee as a performer, and also at the same time, of course, we have to keep in mind like that it will be everything filmed. So just like the other aspect, of course, because I think that the potential is much more like putting the light in a from like playing like with counter light, for example. That's what we couldn't do here because otherwise, you would feel most of the light. And so like there are like different things which I think still possible, like also combining the light with smoke machine, that the smoke gets a color and all these kind of things. Like there are, I think, like a lot of tricks with which we can play.
So I think also we have to consider if in all the parts we should really put it this effect, because also when it's repetitive for me then it gets a bit too much. That's why sometimes I was also putting it down, like moving with the directions, and sometimes when you were getting more intense the piece, then also adding more so you can let the light react more also with the sound you're playing.
The range of the contrast between how bright the light could be on and how dark it could go for filming purposes was, of course, limited. The camera would not be able to catch the entire span of what the light is capable of. Therefore, Nick and Valerio have made a choice to not test the limits of the projectors during the filming sessions in order to preserve the quality of the footage. Also, the overuse of the contrast in the film could in fact subtract from the drama rather than enhance it.
I have things happening in my head when I hear different pieces or play them, especially what I choose to play. It has a meaning for me, and also a mental meaning, obviously. Some kind of a connotation, spiritual connotation, or a message, or again, state of mind. Probably states of mind are the hardest, I would say. This space is now very different from what it's usually like. And when we performed here, I performed here many times in the normal concert setting. And now I feel that I'm in a different space because now it's changed so much, and because of the beautiful installations and the light. And of course, how Leia is using it. This whole combination of different genres gives us a different meaning, a different it's on a different level now. And now this space has become magical for me to create these pieces, recreate maybe these pieces in. So it has much more meaning that usually this room bears. Now this is special. This has become a sanctuary for these 4 days, 3 days, let's say. And yes, of course, I still do have my own perception, but for me also it's very important to be now and here, to be concentrated, to be in the piece, to be in the music, to be with Leia. Because if I'm somewhere else, I'm going to not really pay attention to you, to everything that's here, to the colors. It won't be important anymore. So it's also important to really be here.
Reconsidering the role of the space for a classical pianist. Due to working with a dancer, I realized that following her mentally and tracking her spatial presence made me able to sense the physical area differently. I was aware of the distance and the air between us, visually, audibly, and kinesthetically. The use of gestures in the context of spatial decisions serves as a means of exchange between the performers. That can, in turn, affect interpersonal decision-making in collaborative multimedial interpretation. Exploring the relations of the gesture and distance. Here, the dancer, Leia Oroj, is very close to me, and you can see how she is actively partaking in the process, influencing my musical decisions in the Sonata No. 8 by slightest nods, gentle arm and hand waves, head turns, and so on. The fact that she's basically on the piano bench makes me sense her physical presence to an extent that I almost feel as if she's about to play the piano. Of course, she does play the piece with her body in the space. However, at this distance, she truly shapes the musical decisions together with me, and there is no way I could possibly avoid her influence, even if I would have wanted to, when she's that close. Another example is exploring gesture from further away. There is still communication going on, however, the distance also plays its role, and we have a quite different dynamics happening in our bodily connection. We have all this air between us, and of course micro-movements cannot be seen as clearly as when we are close to each other. Leia reacts immediately to every musical gesture of the introduction of Sonata No. 10 with her physical gestures, making the collaboration a seamless loop where one genre is transferred to the other one and there are no cues or any hard points whatsoever to indicate where one ends and the other one begins.
For me, this installation could change this room somehow. So I make the decision to not make them one piece.
One big.
I try to make it changeable and flexible. Yeah.
Amazing. And I think it's really great because if you build them all together, like for the Sonata number 10, it looks like one huge structure, and then it's easily separable, and then you have 2 or 3. They really transform the room, and the way you place them also creates a different symbolic meaning. And I have never worked with installations yet before, so now for me it's a whole new level of knowledge that, oh, you can have a few things, but then when you place them in a different way, the room becomes again something else and again something else. All the time it's something different. It's a different room in a sense. For each piece, again, we have a different setup.
And it makes me curious of what can I do with this? What else can I do with this? How crazy can it get?
Yeah. And when you brought one, I think it was a small one towards me earlier in the 8th sonata, that was really
Bang to the mics a little bit.
that was part of the process.
Yeah, no, it was, and the choice of you making 3 of them really made a massive difference, because it made me push them apart, put them together, just like a little bit like puzzles, and it just changed also my movement. Really.
The space concept is also a part of the concept of dance, so I make it a bit flexible.
I liked it how the installations for some reason helped me track the time. I don't know, it's very weird information, but for some reason I was not the only one that had like physical attention. Like with my physical movement, it was other objects that had attention, and it made it easier for me to not go straight into crazy movement, but rather explore the other situations or like other objects happening in this room, as well as the stairs, to be fair.
And I realized that helped you a lot.
Yeah.
And of course, helped me because you had the interaction with the structure, and somehow I got involved also because I was watching not just you, but where
Something
it points,
else.
which end is where, and that was almost kind of a conducting experience for me for certain cues, when to start, when to stop. That's very new, obviously. So that's something that I've never done before.
For me, it was interesting to play between the characters, obviously the pure soul and the evil. And kind of the external forces attacking me from somewhere. That was my interpretation. And this, again, helped because it was really giving me restrictions, especially when I was in the middle.
Yeah, and I love that because you were in the middle, in the center. It's kind of the question of centralization, and it's again like a whole new, completely new discovery for me this time to see you work with these things and in the structure, especially in that big one, because it frames you and it gives a whole new visual symbol idea.
Yeah, also like getting out of it, like a new, like becoming completely evil. That was my interpretation again in my brain. It was like getting out of this and just becoming pure evil.
Yeah, it's a tiny detail, but your fingertips are so expressive, and that adds to the quality. Otherwise, you would be maybe symbolizing something else. But when I saw what you did with your fingers, I had this impression, evil. She is like the most evil thing now. And for the ending, it really kind of, your fingertips guided what my fingertips were doing. I don't know if you realized it or not, but I was like really closely watching. You technically showed me when to play the last note. I mean, some things I take from you. And sometimes I wait during pauses if you are going to bring it further, whether you are going to bring it. And now I noticed a few times that you were really with the music, like you were kind of waiting.
I was just waiting for you,
And I was like, no, okay, I take it. Like,
exactly.
Going once, going twice. No, she doesn't want it. Yeah, but
I think stillness is nice and silence. So I just waited for you to be like, oh, she's not gonna do anything. Okay.
Yeah. At the same time, I don't want to stop until forever because then
For
the
sure.
piece is gonna break. Also not good. Yeah.
Maybe at some point I will choose to start. Let's see.
Yeah.
You will not know.
In order to explore and elaborate on the concept of the space more extensively, I have considered what else could be part of the space, apart from the grand piano itself, to give Leia a chance to interact with. This is how I thought of abstract artistic installations which could symbolize various things and serve different sorts of purposes, rather than something in the direction of purely theatrical decorations with a clearer meaning, for instance. Yunnai Zhang immediately picked up my idea and expanded it into these 3 brilliant structures that are light, sturdy, easily movable, and can be interpreted in lots of different ways in the context of each sonata. One of the pieces has 6 bars to it, while the other 2 are half its size with 3 bars each. The bars are bound by the strings to create a peculiar angular shape. The strings, in turn, reflect the colors, interlacing with the light, which adds one more dimension, particularly the relation between the shades and the space. The structures can be put together, representing a corridor or a pathway, such as in the Sonata No. 10, or set apart and almost become characters of the 9th sonata. They can be used as symbols. We can see this in the number 8. It is breathtaking to see how Leia interacts with them. She crawls underneath, throws them, pushes them, and carries them around. At one moment, she has brought one of these structures towards me while I was playing, which has immediately made me feel the space differently. I was suddenly aware of these structures much more when one of those was literally inches from me, again, in the Sonata No. 8. The installations have this unique power to customize and modify the space according to our needs and Leia's interpretation of the characters and symbolism. The fact that they partially reflect the colors integrates them into the project even more and helps build the unity between all the cross-disciplinary factors.
It was good the first half for me. I was in the flow, you were in the flow, and then it's very difficult for me to generally to play, especially now when it's all about the correlation of all these elements. They help with the drama, but in the 8 it's more spread without the particular big climax. For example, like in 7 or in 10, in 9, yeah, so in 6 there are all these up and down points. The 8th one is more even and it's the longest, and in the second half I realized that it was very hard to stay concentrated, to stay in it, and you became again quite static, which was also really, I don't know why it works like this, but it's limiting for me. It's good, it's a good challenge, I like it. I like when you're doing it. By no means I want you to change your concept. But for me, it becomes extra hard somehow when the music doesn't give me a push, when I have to, you know, kind of create a... It's like walking on this road and you're not sure if it leads you anywhere. The 8th sonata is... I was looking at you sometimes and I think it's about something very internal, looking into yourself. And maybe just lingering, maybe just... It's about that state of mind rather than a process. That's what I got today. That's maybe it was difficult for me because it's always easier to build something when there is a process, and it's rather hard when it's, you know, how do you depict a state of mind when there is a bazillion of notes and you have to
be very detailed, but then it's not really something building up into something. It's more floating. And that was probably why it was that hard, but we'll try it again. What about you?
I think the 8 is like very, for me, it's like this. And it feels really hard to stay engaged in it in some way. But it's also the middle one. So I chose to be still. And yeah, like you said, it's a good challenge for you to take that space and just be you and just play and enjoy just having a moment. I think I give so much in the other ones and I'm all over the place. I think stillness is good, even though it might be challenging. It's challenging for me too, to choose to be still. But I kind of like it, particularly in this one.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Because it's like, also because it's the middle one, if we're looking at it from 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm also thinking for the performance and everything. So yeah, I would still choose stillness again and again and again for this one. Maybe trying different kind of stillness in different places. But yeah, it definitely helps me to bring myself back from the 7, which we just done. They're saying like for the 8, when I was so still, I still felt this kind of intensity just looking at you.
Yes, you were really staring at me.
Yeah, by not moving, I was still trying to give you my energy by just sitting, because I think it's important to do that as well as moving, giving the energy every time you give a really loud note or really strong note. It's just feels like I don't always enjoy doing it, always enjoy reacting massively to it. So I was actually playing with that too.
I would revisit this one. Try it again with these concepts in mind, because for now I feel like there is maybe I was hitting a wall or something at some point, a mental wall.
Also, it's like, I have the sensors, and like by just sitting down and kind of focusing on that for a second, it feels quite nice, because I'm like, finding movements that just like react to, but by just sitting down and just doing very pedestrian movement. So I'm not always seen completely as a dancer, or like, because that is dancing in the end as well. So yeah, I don't know. I find 8 the exploration of this maybe.
I'm just curious if you guys had a rehearsal when, not like now, you are 75% approximate, concentrated on what you are playing, and 25 like, okay, Leah. Like, sorry, it's how it looks for me. And did you had it in reverse? Like your 75% of your playing loose, approximated, but you're watching Leah.
Yeah.
And 25 just taking care of what you actually play.
Yeah, that's what happened in April, because we didn't know what would be happening for these pieces. We have worked together before, but with other pieces of Scriabin, not with these sonatas. And that was the first time when we were discovering, or I was rediscovering these pieces. And for me, it was not, first of all, I didn't have a lot of time to bring them back. Second of all, playing that as perfectly as possible was not the point for me. It was rather more important to follow Leah, for Leah to follow me. And of course, when I was struggling technically, she immediately felt it, because then my tempo would slow down, or I would be looking for a chord if I would be losing it, things like that. And I also know that if I don't prepare, if I don't, I try to know these pieces inside and out and backwards, and when I can, if it works, that's the plan. Because if I am going to be getting stuck, it's going to be much more difficult for Leia with the movement, because the movement will keep breaking, and she immediately will tell me, oh, that was so slow. Oh, I lost it because I wasn't sure what's happening, or that was dragging. And I realized, okay, she's telling me that when something is happening at the keyboard, and I do let it loose, but I have to find it and put it back together and continue the piece. I can't just, I can stop, but then there's no more piece. So that is challenging, say the least. Yeah, I chose the easiest pieces to play. I know, it's my own problem.
Due to the density of the material, it is often problematic for us to look at each other. Each of us had to learn to feel and evaluate what is happening by activating all our senses. Of course, I look at Leia and vice versa every time there is an opportunity to physically do so without sacrificing the material. Our short glances determine transitions, temporally, timbrally, and balance-wise. These looks helped us both re-establish the connection when there was a lot of material going on. They were anchor points in deciding on when and how to continue with the piece.
If I were you, I would of course be tied in the middle between wanting to create beautiful material, knowing this is being filmed and so on, trying to keep things contained, trying to do everything right. And at the same time, I would probably ask you to do one thing where you just let loose. Because maybe it's not even possible with these pieces, but it's kind of, you are going in that direction anyway, and it gets really interesting when you are. So towards the end of the seventh sonata, for example, you kind of switched from shaping your movements to being shaped. And something like this happened with you as well, I felt. And then, of course, you're in this double bind because you're trying to play, all the notes correctly and so on. And that's the difficult. That's like maximum difficulty because, of course, you've got to control the piece. And at the same time, there's the pull towards, this is wild stuff. So how far can you go? If you had the time to do something crazy for half an hour and just play even though you think half the stuff is wrong. Because it's interesting, there are moments where you seemingly lose technical control, but they are the most expressive moments. It's very interesting. It gets really intense and expressive when you are really struggling with what you're doing. And these, I mean, most of this is so controlled. It really felt like, okay, you're controlling it so much that it can only go this far because you're controlling it. You have to control it, but it can only go this far. And then there were these moments when you were connecting even more. Maybe Lea's movement was getting you into, oh wow, oh, I'm going to try and follow this a little bit. And then, of course, you're struggling immediately, but that got really expressive. It was almost as if the piece was speaking more at a place where the piece was not falling apart, but much less perfectly played than in the other bits. Yeah. But I'm a fan of that.
I don't know if obviously, because I don't know the sonatas like that well, but there was moments when I was there so exhausted, not like leaving things to control me, and I don't know if it just happened that it worked. I don't know if you got it wrong and you had to redo something, or I don't know what happened, but it was certain times where I was like, there was a little pause and then it started again, and it was just like, oh, this was really cool. Like, I don't know if that was what you were talking about, but I've certainly felt something like that by the end.
Of number 7?
Yes. There was a slight moment when I was in the back bend and I stood for a little bit and it was silence for a very still moment. I felt this moment, and maybe that was one of the moments that you were talking about.
Yes.
That's all.
Yes, that's the case. The question is, how much do you let the resonance between you grow into something that will change the course of what's happening? It definitely is a taboo, a performance taboo that is being broken in the moment as a pianist when you stop worrying about whether you're playing the right notes or not. And that's the danger zone. Every pianist is scared of derailing on stage in front of an audience or in front of the camera, right? And I'm not saying always do this. I'm just saying, if I had one wish, one day, maybe not today or tomorrow, to kind of just do it without worrying about the taboo and see what happens. I felt that even in the 6th sonata, but also in the 7th, whenever you got close to responding, two of you, both, and it goes both ways, you started to realize, oh, but that's compromising the sense of perfection of the playing. And then you kind of went back and out. And maybe that's enough. Maybe it's interesting just to notice, aha, I'm playing with, another potential of the piece, which I can't realize because I have to keep playing it. But maybe to make that longer, or maybe to stay in that dangerous space a bit longer. That could be, that was my response. I mean, these pieces are enigmatic anyway, and like super difficult to play anyway. And so all of that is an achievement in itself. I also had been wondering, Lea, did you have any time with these objects? Just seeing what I can do just for yourself. I mean, just trying things out. Or is basically your performance time is the time when you're trying things out?
I had on the first day a little bit that I was playing and testing them out. There's definitely, for sure, if I was just doing it by myself, I would probably, if that was the only thing I was focusing on, it would probably become something else again. But when I have to react to quite a few things in the room, it's like this can then get very distracting to focus only on this, because then
the whole piece goes, and I'm playing with this, and it's not exactly I don't know what it should be. I don't know, maybe, but you know, the lights are not used, the movement is, I'm in my own space with this object, not with Alina. And you know, so a lot of different things would happen, and that would be separate, and we wouldn't be maybe that much connection between us anymore.
But that's theoretical. And if you try this out, maybe you will find something else. So this is really just, we think it's like that, but sometimes by leaving out things that we think we have to worry about, something else happens.
It's true, maybe it's, yeah.
I'm really just responding to the experience. I noticed already the difference that this setting is making on it's opening some things that you probably have been waiting for. Is that the case?
Yeah, that's why we're doing it. That's why I brought a team of 10 people into this room.
Yeah. Because I heard Elena just a few days ago play all the sonatas. And I heard you.
Very sad experience.
I was fortunate to have a performance with one person in the audience, being me. And
not on my most fortunate day also.
But already the sense of sharing gestural time and that affecting your playing is already there. So it's very, in that sense, it's already a strong success.
One of the major factors in any performance genre is the use of time. Artists have a particular temporal perception when working alone or with collaborators within their own medium. However, the sense of the time as an artistic device may alter significantly when the art genres are cross-disciplinarily blended and artists from various media work simultaneously on the same material in an experimental setting. The perception and sense of time, for me as a musician, expands through the work in different modalities, through the increased density of the content when my collaborators and I are working together. While I find it necessary to take more time during particular moments of the piece in order to explore and respond to what happens artistically between us, during others I must let the flow of the dance influence me if I sense that there is an urgent artistic need to keep going even more. These are, of course, very subtle interpretational decisions, or rather, reactions to what is happening simultaneously during a live cross-disciplinary performance.
something about the state of mind. I cannot always really backtrack what's been happening, neither on stage nor in this setting, which is still a performance. There is no audience, but it's special. And in this performative, performance-like situations, I always go into another headspace from which it's hard to backtrack the process. Sometimes when I'm back on earth, back to normal, to my normal self, not performing at the piano, interacting with all of you. But what I know for sure is that the setting that we've had, it has definitely helped me connect better with the character, with the atmosphere, and that made me discover maybe even not just new aspects of the music that I know already from before, but in a way new aspects of myself, especially in the sonatas that turn inwards, let's say number 6 and 8, in different ways, because the 6 is a huge struggle with the deepest, darkest parts of oneself. And the last run that we did, I felt for both, although the 8th is just maybe observing and monitoring, there is not that much struggle. But I felt that when I perceived you, when I could look at you, or when I tracked you with my peripheral vision, it gave me a thought, since that was an inner exploration, that what I'm seeing, your silhouette, that's also some aspect of me. And since I'm exploring myself through this music, that you are also representing me, or maybe I'm representing you, that this is, since this is a self-exploration, I felt like we almost became something, one or two parts of one whole, someone, something, I'm not sure what.
Embodiment. Bidirectional embodiment.
It became, it was a bit disturbing actually at a certain point, because I have never known a sensation like this, and it was quite deep. It was quite striking. Silent hallucination, because you were silent. You were not making sounds on purpose, but then you were there, and it's like a hallucination that's there, but that's me, but that's not really me, and you're a different person. But we are doing this together. We're doing this one thing. Are we representing one thing now? Maybe that goes too much into psychology or psychiatry. I have gotten that sensation that has never happened before. I don't know if I should laugh. Maybe this is not funny at this point. Maybe I'm going somewhere with this, but that was definitely new. It's connecting to the character to an extent when it becomes on the edge. I don't know if it's good or bad. Maybe it's good artistically. Maybe it's not good mentally. Maybe it's okay. We'll find out.
So actually what you are doing is you are kind of building the hybrid personality via your interaction. Human interaction. Yeah. It mostly happens when you are close. Then you can track just each other.
And I think it's definitely stronger, like, as much as you were trying to avoid that stillness when I was sitting looking at you, I had that sense that you just wanted to do something else, and I was like, no, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna look at you. And I knew that you were feeling uncomfortable about it, but I was like, this is my boundary. I'm not gonna do anything else because it feels right and it felt like I should be doing it. And when you were sitting right opposite me, like when we changed the piano, I felt like you felt a little bit better too, because you had more direct, like we were directly looking at each other.
Yeah.
And, you know, I could feel that you still were like, whoa, that's intense, but like, I really enjoyed it.
I could give back a bit of that intensity.
Yeah.
And when you are on the side, it's very hard because you can't really focus and look. You have to turn back, and it's a little too much of turning that makes you dizzy mentally.
No, for sure.
But when it's straight, I could withstand that better, you know?
For sure. And I think putting the piano this way was a very smart idea. And I think I'm very glad we did it, because it made me also, it gave me a little approval that it was good that I was insisting on what I was doing. And it felt good that, you know, you got to feel it a bit more too. So,
yeah. So when it's on the side, when you're on the side, just like, that's what made me vulnerable. And when it was direct, it made a tie in a way.
And perhaps you also got the chance or time to accept that that's something I'm going to be doing.
True.
And I think that was really important.
Yeah. Also, it's not only because you were there sitting, you're on my left side. It was the moment of stillness, which was strange because I'm used to knowing that you're moving. The light is moving slightly or a lot. You are moving, even if it's not very with very big movements, if these are micro movements, if you're even moving a finger. But if you're only sitting still, that puts me in a strange situation, because it's not a concert situation when I'm alone on stage performing at the piano, there is no one there. It's a different situation, and now I'm used to the fact that you're moving and you're not. So that's a huge question mark. What is happening? Is everything okay? Does she want to stop? Does she not want to stop? Do I keep playing? Is something wrong? Is that on purpose? Is that not on purpose? When all these thoughts come to you and you still have to play at the same time, of course you are distracted 10 times by overthinking. And I am a person who tends to overthink, think of all the possible options. And that's also something that was in the way. It was not very easy for me to immediately accept, okay, she doesn't want to move, I will just keep playing, because I do want to interact in the way I can, and I can't, because you're not letting me. You are not interacting.
But
And
that
was a
was
challenge.
that I didn't want to move. I chose not to move, and I chose stillness to use as a movement. So stillness can be movement as well, you know?
Yes.
And so I chose to do that. I was not doing it because I didn't want to move, you know? Like, because I would be tired or something. Like,
No, it was deliberate, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
But I didn't know at first, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I know.
And we didn't discuss it, but it was a good challenge, a good surprise.
Yeah.
Did the sound change for you in a way that would affect your performance? Actually,
I was interesting. I don't know if the sound changed, but the intensity of the energy, for me, it changed. For some reason, because Alina was we were so much more connected, and she was giving me more back to what I was given before. I felt like I was able to predict some stuff better.
going into spins. Maybe it's time to stop.
It was challenging to create this work, as in any cinematic project, the shots have to be planned in advance. Due to Leia's part being improvised, as she did not set any choreography, it was sometimes quite unpredictable for our filmmakers, Alisa Kobzar and Denis Zhdanov, to quickly catch Leia on camera and make sure that the shot was technically and artistically corresponding to how we have envisioned the work to be filmed. Since no one, including Leia herself, knew where and how precisely she would be dancing, it was a huge achievement of our team to be able to create this work.
Yeah, it was also challenging. And when we are speaking about making the film, it's mostly about the planning. And we could not do that.
I think it's a good thing though, because it throws you in a zone of being uncomfortable, and I think only when you're uncomfortable, that's when the most creativity comes out. It's speaking for myself, and from what I've seen from people as well. When you feel uncomfortable, you start creating things that are maybe a little bit outside of what you would normally react to. And I think it's a good thing of not being able to plan everything. I didn't know how the piano's gonna be turned. I didn't know if it's gonna be two pianos in there. Like, there was a lot of uncertainty, and, you know, I know that I trust myself enough to know that I'm gonna be able to make something out of this, because I don't necessarily create expectations from myself, because it's improvisation, you know. So I really enjoyed this and the use of these installations. Thank you. Really, really interesting things, and I think I could make even more things with it if, you know, I play with it even longer.
This project is as opposite from a music recording in a studio as it can get, with both of us breathing, with Leia dancing, which includes slides, jumps, falls, and even accidentally bumping one of the installations onto the string holding the microphones in the air, which of course started moving, but nevertheless kept recording, and often heard mouse clicks from the computer controlling the light. Benedikt Alphart did a tremendous job recording and editing the soundtracks to diminish the extra noises that did not have anything to do with the piano sound. So one could not only hear a mastered music recording, but also a much cleaner one, considering the circumstances it was created in.
It was a huge fun for me, because I like making videos, and we had such great possibilities here. And this, let's say, conflict of these beautiful installations, sharp angled installations and rounded shape of the room, so a really great combination. The light that reflects so well on the white curtain, it's all really, really great. And of course, your work is amazing. In general, I think that's a great success for us to have so many pros and so few cons in this setup. And for me, it was really fun to film it. And I really, well, on the one side, I'm not looking forward to edit all this mess. On the other side, I really enjoy already watching the fresh material, and I think we might have something beautiful, and I'm really happy about that.
When I'm alone on stage in a solo recital or solo piano setting, of course it's different, and I probably wouldn't have had these challenges, but here I don't think in the same way. I'm in another space, literally and mentally and spiritually and artistically, and all these kinds of things are different, so it's a totally different mode. And it's not the same thing, you know, playing this sonata at a piano recital, and I've done it. I've done it by memory. Actually, it was good. Yeah, I even was surprised. And now it's just a different piece. It's a different me. And no, I haven't done it in this particular room, but even if I would have, it would be a different room. Obviously, it is a different room, and that's the whole point.
This work has brought not only a number of artistic insights via its dramaturgy. However, there was also a number of very personal discoveries which have allowed to experience multidimensional aspects of the sonatas that might have never been brought to life in a standard classical concert atmosphere. I argue that during cross-disciplinary renditions of a work, the interpretation and artistic approach can be expanded and altered to a certain extent, thus enriching the quality of the final outcome and revisioning a musical piece as a polydimensional creation. Achieving an intermedial dialogue is possible through listening, watching, sensing mutually in the environment of respect and willingness to communicate and interact professionally and personally. There are subtle but audible changes that can be perceived upon a thorough comparison of the recordings, as well as the sensations between playing solo and working in a cross-disciplinary context. Exchange plus personal imagery times each individual artist equals to going into a different headspace, as all the senses are activated at their maximum capacity due to processing much more information and responding immediately, allowing for the aesthetic of chance and spontaneity to be part of the interpretation, welcomes the unexpected, determines the how, and expands the content through the movement, light, and space in order to give it a chance to unfold. The space is present, or else we are present in the space, even with little to no physical movement some of us have during our practice. However, perceiving the dancer visually, audibly, and mentally has enabled my kinesthetic sensations, due to which the physical space has now acquired a deeper meaning compared to the one it had before, in my personal hierarchy of factors that impact my interpretation. Viewing the gesture as the means of communication has determined interpersonal decision-making. When combined together, multiple artistic media create a profound context for interpreting a musical work by allowing for the synesthetic multisensory perception to affect the interpretation. The responsiveness and readiness of each artist aids in creating a unique intersubjective system of transcribing particular musical devices into the movement. The light and color changes into the musical flow, the spatial shifts into dramatic aspects, which in turn allows us to pass the material by crossing over from one discipline into the others and back. Therefore, the interpretation becomes extensively interpersonal, broadly unfolded, and profoundly enriched by the density of the artistic content.
For me, it was quite an experience working with all of you guys. I'm overwhelmed. For me, these pieces now have come to a different level of understanding, because through, of course, the music plus movement plus space plus light and color, they now have bloomed
and they have showed me some of the qualities that maybe I suspected were there, but they have really opened up, and some other qualities that I have discovered completely anew, along with the ones that I have envisioned before, and I have confirmed them alive now. They have become alive through this process. We tried the number 8 in a different setup, at least twice, the 2 last times, with different concepts of the movement, when Leia was being still, for example, and then the second time you were interacting with installations and you were closer to me. That changed a lot for me. Or for example, when the light started reacting to me, it was more contrasting as what we tried at first. That was also a change, because it's not just the musical dynamic that is being changed, but also the light that really brings something into the play. The installations have helped me discover something space-wise, because I didn't even know. I suspected that there can be something, there can be symbolism, but when these structures form a pathway, or they symbolize evil forces, external forces, the piece also acquires a whole new meaning. And Leia being the character surrounded by these forces, that's already the whole theatrical setting for, let's say, the 9th sonata. So for me, it was also huge, not just envisioning things in my mind, not just hearing and virtually seeing something, but being present in this now and here among these structures, with this light, with you moving. It's still so fresh that it's not easy for me to put all my thoughts together. I'm still under this whole impression after playing in these circumstances. This is relatively new. I mean, it's not new to do cross-disciplinary projects for me. It's my project number 6, a full scope project, but I have not done anything to this extent. The unity of multiple art genres interacting together in one cross-disciplinary setting really makes the art work and performance bloom visually, audibly, spatially, and again and again I am convinced in this, and I'm very, very grateful to all of you for creating this with me. Thank you all, and bravo.
Space and time are not separable from sensation. It, together with sensation, is one single creative act. There is no space and time apart from sensation. There is no pre-existing space and time before the sensations which are accommodated within them. Space and time are created together with sensations. This is still the same single creative act, the same act of distinguishing. In order to distinguish something, it is necessary to be outside it, from the point of view of the forms of space and time. To be outside it means to be situated at the center. Alexander Scriabin.
I will stop this philosophy for tonight because everyone is tired.
That's all.